such a slave to Berkeley romance. No one prepared me. It was chilling. It was so creepy. It was like, oh gosh, like I am like scared. I am stressed. I'm sorry I was not familiar with how truly phenomenal this series is. I need a counter every time I say, this book really surprised me. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are talking finally about my favorite books from 2023. And before you go, Sarah, January's almost over. Why are you just posting this now? I'm sorry, I had like a headache for a week and a half and I couldn't film, so I couldn't upload this. But we're here now and we're ready to talk about favorite books. And there are a lot. Last year I read over 200 books and I loved so many of them. So this was a really hard list to make. So there are at least 23 books on this list. I tried to keep it to 23, but I'm very excited to just talk about them with you. Oh, and new setup-ish, new backdrop, possibly only because I wanted this to be in it. This beautiful, stunning, gorgeous,
show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique
edition of Well Met. I have all 4 of the books. You can only see Well Met right now, but they are so pretty. It's like a dream come true for me to have special editions of Well Met. Next up, any companies want to do special editions of either Veronica Speedwell, oh my god, I would die, I would pass away, or the Bergman brothers. That's a little sneak peek into books that are gonna be on this list. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. It's time to talk about favorite books. The first book on this list is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This is from the Broken Binding. I got special edition. It doesn't have the dust jacket on it right now because I refuse to cover this absolute gorgeous work of art. Anyway, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon was one of my favorite books of 2023, even though I would say the first 25-30% of the book was tough for me to get into. But once stuff starts happening, once shit hits the fan, oh my gosh, it is like so much is happening. It's so overwhelming, but it's also so much fun, and I loved all the characters so much. This is obviously fantasy. This is a prequel to Priory of the Orange Tree, and honestly, I don't know which one I recommend reading first, because I feel like there are plot points that would be maybe spoiled if you didn't read Priory first, but it kind of goes either way. Like if you read Priory first, you would know some things about this book, and vice versa. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed getting like kind of like the lore that is in Priory, and I really liked all the characters, and I was really invested in like all of them, especially what's his name? I think his name's Wolf. I don't know. I could be completely wrong on his name, but I just adored all the characters, obviously the world, and it's just epic. And I'm very happy she decided to write this book, even though much to my sister's chagrin, who loves the Bone Season, there was a break between the newest Bone Season book to make way for this. So I benefited because I'm a Priory girly. Definitely recommend the series, even if it seems overwhelming. Completely pivoting genres, this one was a YA romance, and it was unfairly cute. So much so that I'm highly suspicious at how unfairly cute it was.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Oh, that was such a lame joke. I'm sorry. That was, of course, Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This was like best friends turned like rivals turned lovers, and its cuteness, and it just made me smile so much. I've loved everything I've read by Talia Hibbert so far. There's just something about her writing that is just so, it's like a warm hug, and I just love it, and it makes me happy. So even if you don't read YA, I recommend this one because it's absolutely adorable. This one was an advanced copy I read, and I was maybe a little bit surprised. I just loved it. I thought it was adorable. So this is adult romance, and that is The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. It was just so cute. So this is about this woman. She works in publishing, and she just adores this one fantasy series. One day, she kind of, I think deliriously, ends up sending this email. Like, she goes on to the author's website for her favorite fantasy series, and she just deliriously sends them an email. And to her surprise, she gets an email back, and they start corresponding, and they are kind of a little cute and flirty. So the first portion of this book is through the emails, which I enjoyed. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really enjoy, I think it's called epistolary elements in books, especially when it's a big chunk of it, because I don't know, it's just kind of fun. It's fast paced. It's like, it's a good way to get you into a book. All of a sudden, he just kind of drops off the map and stops responding to her. So she kind of moves on. And then there's this new guy who moves in next door to her, and he's kind of cute, and they kind of flirt a little bit. Obviously, the twist, it is in fact that her neighbor is the fantasy author. He obviously uses a pen name, so no one knows who he is. It's just the cutest little romance, and I adored it. Highly recommend. It's just cute. It's cute and fun. I've already talked about this book a little tiny bit, and this is probably the funniest book I read in 2023. It was absolutely hysterical. It was so fun. It's a mystery. So, pivoting genres again, and that is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna like tell you the points that had me just dying of laughter, because, you know, you need to experience that for yourself. I have been like trying desperately to get my sister to read this because it's just such a funny book. I got my mom to read it. She loved it. So we've been trying to force this on my sister because it's so funny. And it's a mystery that's about this tea shop owner named Vera Wong. One day she, you know, goes downstairs from her apartment into her tea shop, and there's a dead guy on the floor. Where'd he come from? And naturally, the police are totally incapable of solving this, so she must do it herself. She's just such a kick. And you also get the point of view of people who could potentially have a motive. It's also kind of funny because these suspects that she's gathering together, they kind of end up becoming friends and creating a found family. But it's just like so many lovable characters, such fun vibes, so funny. And one of my followers came into my DMs and she said, I watched your video and this book is getting a sequel. So thank you for telling me that, because that was the book that I wished had a sequel, was this one. Next is another romance. This one is a historical romance. Another one that I read an advanced copy of, and it kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love it. And that is Anna Maria and the Fox by Liana De La Rosa. And this is the first book in the Luna Sisters series. This is about 3 sisters who are sent to London during the French occupation of Mexico to seek refuge. And it's kind of like their experience like entering into like London society for the first time. They're kind of like the talk of the town, and it's just like them navigating it. Anna Maria is the oldest, and she ends up falling in love with Gideon Fox, who is a member of Parliament, and he's trying to abolish the Atlantic slave trade. And it was such a fun book, and I'm really, really excited to read the next book in the series, Isabel and the Rogue. This book does a good job of like setting up the other 2 books in the series, both of which I'm very excited for. So yeah, it's just a fun historical romance. The romance is great. The sisters are great. It's just great, and I really loved it. This one was sent to me for free from Valentine PR. A lot of books on this list were kind of like shockers, whereas like I wasn't necessarily anticipating it to be a book that I just loved so much. And that is The Tragedy of Felix and Jake by J. Daniels. This was like angsty, but also so cute. And it was like, I could not stop reading it. A mark of like a book that is going to become a favorite for me is when I'm reading it during the middle of the day, because normally I read at night, but this one, it's like I was getting back from class. I'm like, okay, ignoring my sister, time to pick up this book and read it and see what's going to happen next. So basically this is about Felix and Jake. Felix is a recovering addict, and Jake is an addict who has just relapsed after like, I think a couple years being sober, but he's just relapsed, and so he's moved back home. He's trying to go to meetings again, and Felix ends up becoming his sponsor. And just the dynamic between the 2 of them is so cute, so sweet. Felix is so sunshiny, but it's also like he really struggles a lot too. So there's Obviously, a lot of angst in this one. You kind of have to check the content warnings, especially for the exploration of like addiction and stuff like that. But it was still just so sweet. I loved their romance so much. I really recommend this one. This one isn't one I get to feature very much on my page, which I feel like I need to change because I want more people to read it. So I'm so happy this one was sent to me because it's definitely not a book I would have found otherwise. I just really liked it a lot. And this one was a book that it's like romantic suspense. Heavier on the suspense than it is the romance right now. Also paranormal, a little bit paranormal in there. I finished this book and I came to the realization that it was the first in a series with no news on when the next book was supposed to come out. I finished this book in like the middle of the night. So like my mom was like, you know, sleeping in the room too. And so it's like I get up, I go to the bathroom and I sit in there and I legitimately started to cry. Because I was like, what do you mean I just read this book that's the start of a very slow burn series and I don't know when the next book is coming out?
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
That is Liar City by Ali Theron. It's a romance, suspense, paranormal set in like an alternate version of Seattle. The main character, he's an empath. There's this anti-empath law that's about to be taken into effect when all of a sudden like the senator, I think, or the politician that's really pushing that law gets killed. They call in this like, you know, secret agent named the Dead Man who is just infamous for only dealing with empath cases, and basically they have to work together and figure out who the killer was. And oh my gosh, this book was so good. Oh my god, I loved it so much. And I'm December, I have to wait until December for the next book to come out, but this one was really good. I love like a mix of like mystery and like a little bit of romance in there. So yeah, this one was, it was so fun. This one, I was not surprised by. I knew I was going to enjoy this one. This is romance. There's a little bit of like magicalness mixed in. I don't know, maybe magical realism. I don't know what I would qualify it as. And that is The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. There's something about her romances that are just so good. So the main character in this book, Clementine, she is a book publicist and she's kind of going through it. Her beloved aunt had died, I don't know, semi-recently. She's been living in her aunt's old apartment, but she's kind of changed it all because she just can't handle being in the apartment anymore. When one day she kind of gets home after a rough day at work, she finds this guy in her apartment and she's like, who are you and what are you doing in my house? It turns out she has actually kind of entered her apartment at a point 7 years in the past, and this guy was subletting the apartment from her aunt while her aunt was on a vacation. She ends up kind of like spending time with this guy whenever she enters her apartment, and it happens to be the past, and they're kind of like having a little bit of a romantic connection, but obviously he's 7 years in the past, so what are you gonna do? Is she gonna find the guy in the future? Like, where is this guy? What happened to him? So you'll just have to read it and see what the book's about, because I genuinely don't know how to explain this in a very good way, other than to say I just loved it and it was so sweet. And I just love the way that Ashley Poston mixes in the magic with her romance. I loved the Dead Romantics and I really liked this one as well. This next one, another romance. Who is shocked? Absolutely no one. If I were to be putting this in order, this would probably be at the top of the list for my absolute favorite book of the year. I read it in one sitting, front to back. So this is a romance. This is the second in a series of standalones. And that is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This book was just the warmest little hug that is every romance lover's dream. I've already talked about this book. I know. I've already talked about this book in my first video. But oh my goodness, it just made my heart so happy. Annie and Will were so cute. So basically this is set in a small town. It is following the sister of the male main character of the first book and the bodyguard of the female main character from the first book. And basically Annie, the main character, she is the youngest of these siblings. Everyone kind of treats her that way. They don't treat her like this grown woman. And she's a romantic. She's just a softie at heart. And she wants a great love, but she has never really had good luck with romance. Will he has trouble committing based on like what happened with his parents when he was growing up, But he's kind of drawn to Annie, and he says, you know what? I'm gonna help you practice. Practice makes perfect. And so it's kind of like practice dating, practice relationship, and obviously they're like, you know, we should practice kissing. You know, we should practice kissing. Just for practice.
Sure, Jan.
It's so cute. It's just a nice warm hug in the shape of a book. So this is small town romance. Adorableness. I loved it. Loved it so much. So this is another one. Another second book in a series of standalones. This was another one with a bodyguard. Are we sensing a trend here? Anyway, that was Codename Charming by Lucy Parker. This is the sequel to Battle Royal, following the sister of the male lead from the first book, and a bodyguard who is introduced in the first book as well.
Coincidence? I think not.
Oh my gosh, how did I never make that connection? But this is just absolutely adorable. Another just such a cute book. You could describe it as a Beauty and the Beast-ish vibe because the main character, he's very like self-conscious about his appearance. He's this huge guy. I don't know if he's scarred or not, but he's just very self-conscious about his appearance because he's not conventionally handsome because beauty standards are bullshit and they say he is unattractive. But I don't know, he's attractive to me because he is the grumpiest but also the sweetest, and I just love him. Petunia, her name is Petunia, she goes by Pet. Petunia is the personal assistant to either the husband or the fiance of the princess, and you know, Johnny, who she's the assistant for, he's very bumbling, he's very clumsy, and so there's a tabloid photo that makes it look like him and Petunia are having an affair even though they're not. And so what happens is her and Matthias have to kind of pretend to be dating. So the tabloids will kind of leave them alone. Oh my god, it's so cute. I just loved the dynamic between all the characters, and I have honestly been waiting forever for this book because it's set up very well at the end of the last book, and it absolutely lived up to my expectations. This next one, I do not own. I do not have a copy of. I read it as an advanced copy, and oh my goodness. This book was YA slasher, but also it was like one of the few YA horror slasher books that I could feel the stakes. And that is There's No Way I'd Die First by Lisa Springer. So basically this is about a girl, and I don't know if she runs a horror film club or if she runs the film club. I'm pretty sure it's a horror focused film club. She just loves horror movies, right? And so she is having this party, this super fancy Halloween party, and it's like at their remote mansion, and it's themed based on horror movies, and she's got it all. They're watching a movie and they're all dressed up as like iconic horror movie characters. It's just very well themed out. And she also like hired a Pennywise clown to come and like be the one who instigates like hide and seek, like a spooky game of hide and seek. But when the Pennywise clown shows up, he's acting kind of strange. He's a little too committed to the bit. So they start the game of hide and seek. But very quickly this game of hide and seek turns deadly. This clown is absolutely insane, and he starts picking them off one by one. It's very much a cross between like classic slasher movies, you know, with one killer picking off a group of teenagers, and Saw. So if that gives you a picture of what the book is like, what the kills are like. Yeah. Oh, and there's a little bit of romance. There's a dash of romance mixed in there. So that was kind of like what kept me from being too stressed out by this book, but it was so good. It was absolutely immersive, and I just really enjoyed it. It was exactly what I wanted out of like a slasher book. This next one, another romance, obviously, that I read in like almost one sitting, practically one sitting. I probably read like 60% of it in one sitting, maybe 70% of it. This was a romance book that people really compare to like Ted Lasso vibes, and I do see the vibes there. That is The Long Game by Elena Armas. Say what you want about the Spanish Love Deception. Oh, it's overhyped. That book was fun, okay? I liked Spanish Love Deception. I liked The American Roommate Experiment even more. But this one was like a mix of like what I loved most about both of them. So this is probably my favorite. No, this is my favorite. Oh, it was so cute. And I loved the love interest. Mr. Cameron Caldani. Oh my god, I was like dying over him the entire time I was reading this book. So basically, this is about a woman named Adeline. She works for the Miami Flames FC. She just has a dream one day of like heading it up because her father's the owner. She has a dream of just being the owner because she loves it. This is her passion. She loves it. After an incident, she gets tasked with charity work that will get her out of the spotlight, and that is managing a team, a soccer team, and she doesn't really know much about this team. She just knows the name. She gets there, middle of nowhere in North Carolina, and this struggling local team turns out to be a team of like 12-year-old girls. Who else have they, brought in as the coach for this team other than a recently retired professional goalkeeper? And immediately they just butt heads. They do not like each other very much at all. But they also seem kind of drawn to each other. And so it's just so good. The romance is so cute. There's a goat. There's an animal named Sebastian Stan. There is a pottery scene filled with sexual tension. Yeah. And there's adorable little soccer players that are just the cutest ever. So I loved this one, absolutely adored it, and I'm very excited for the next book. Another romance, this one I read on Kindle Unlimited, and then I did the thing that every reader does when they read a book on their Kindle, and I bought myself a trophy for my shelves, and that is The Fall of Bradley Reed by Morgan Elizabeth. This is the third book in the Seasons of Revenge series. I absolutely loved Tis the Season for Revenge. That book was so much fun. Cruel Summer was good, but I didn't love it as much as Tis the Season for Revenge. But this book, I don't know which one I like better, the first one or this one, but it was so fun. And this follows Olivia Anderson, who is the daughter of the love interest from the second book, and she gets left at the altar by Bradley Reed. And she's like, you know what? Screw him. Screw this.
I'm getting revenge. I'm gonna fuck up some football players and I'm buying a gun. Hell yeah.
Her revenge veers more towards the unaliving of her ex-fiance.
Well, what about like a bomb? Like a super small bomb.
Yeah. Hazel, let's do terrorism.
And basically, the love interest is an FBI agent, and Bradley Reed is not a good guy. They've been building a case against him, and his job has been to surveil Olivia. One of those things that he is surveilling are her internet searches. So he is seeing all these things, and basically what he's trying to do throughout this story is he'll see when she's about to do something particularly unhinged that could get her in very big trouble, and he kind of intercepts her, and that's how they start interacting together, is that like he'll be going to stop her from trying to murder her ex-fiance. So this book is just so much fun. I love the romance, obviously, but it was killing me, the things she wanted to do for revenge. Like, that was the strength of this book, was that it was just so dang funny. It's just pure fun. Pure fun. The vibes were vibing, and that's why it was like an easy 5 stars. I was just obsessed with it. I'm like, this is so much fun. This was another one that surprised me a little bit. Haven't said that in a while, have I? Have I? It was a fantasy romance, kind of more on the YA end, and it's a Hades and Persephone retelling called Girl, Goddess, Queen by B. Fitzgerald. And also, look at that. I love this edition. I didn't really know what to expect going into this one because I don't read mythology retellings very often. It was a really, really entertaining read. Obviously, like Persephone, she was just such a strong character and I loved her, but I loved the romance between her and Hades. It was very much a rom-com, like a Greek mythology rom-com. I was like the epitome of like, blushing, giggling, kicking my feet a lot more than I thought I would with this book. I highly recommend this one, especially if you don't read a lot of Greek mythology. I feel like this is one that would be a good like Kickstarter because it's like not too dense, but it's still like a good plot with like strong characters and a good romance. So it's got a little bit of everything that I really liked. This next one is another one that I don't own a copy of. This is another YA slasher book, and it was so much fun. It gave me all the Scream vibes that I want out of YA slasher books, and that is Your Lonely Nights Are Over by Adam Sass. People describe it as Clueless meets Scream. So it's about these two friends, Deary and Cole, and they aren't really well liked amongst people at school, but also specifically the queer club that they're a part of. What happens is that members of the queer club start getting picked off one by one. The way in which they get picked off is that they'll get a text that will say it's like, your lonely nights will soon be over, and then they show up dead with like a text saying your lonely nights are over or something like that. It's kind of like, you know, you're trying to figure out who the killer is. I will say, I was right. I guessed it. And so that was part of the fun of the book, was I was reading it and I had this theory in my head, and so I'd be making the connections and I would be like testing these clues against my theory, and I ended up being right. And I love when I'm right, when I am guessing the twist. This one was just exactly what I wanted. I wanted a book with Scream vibes, and this book delivered Scream vibes in a way that not many other YA slashers that I've read have. This one is the second book in a romance series that is very much like Hallmark movie vibes, but make it queer. That is In the Case of Heartbreak by Courtney Kay. Courtney is just the absolute sweetest human ever. If you ever have the chance to meet Courtney, take that opportunity. Back to the book. This is In the Case of Heartbreak by Courtney Kay. It's a friends to lovers story where like Ben has just been absolutely head over heels in love with Adam forever, and he doesn't think he has a shot. Obviously, you know they're gonna end up together, but still it was like killing me because I'm just like, I was dying for every single one of their interactions. There was like an element of angst to it because Ben felt like his feelings weren't returned. It was just so precious. I just loved it so much. This one takes place outside of like the small town where they live, in this little coastal town in California, where he is there for I think his grandmother's birthday, and his grandmother is an absolute icon. She is so funny and she is so fun, and she is like a little like matchmaker, like pulling the little strings for Adam and Ben. Another one I read like, I don't know, maybe 60% of it in one sitting, maybe more than 60% of it in one sitting, but it was like, oh, it was so good. Just like cute and sweet and absolutely adorable. I told you I would talk a lot about this series, so you should have expected that one of these books would end up on my favorites of 2023, and that is A Sinister Revenge by Deanna Rayborn, which was the most recent Veronica Speedle book. I think the one before this is An Impossible Imposter, and the ending of it, An Impossible Imposter, had me throwing my Kindle across the room and being like, give me this book now. And this was so good. And I don't want to talk too much about it because obviously it's like 6 or 7 books of build-up leading to some of the things that happen in this book, and I just loved it. In my ranking of the series, it's up there for my favorite with number 4. Number 4 is so good. And it's mystery. Obviously, the mystery was good. The mystery was great. I was hooked. Peak Veronica and Stoker. Good romance. She's groveling. So good. I know I said this list would be 23, but I cheated a little bit because I wanted to choose one book by this author as my favorite to talk about. And I couldn't choose because I loved all of these books. So next on this list is anything written by Chloe Liese that I read in 2023. Ha ha ha, do you see all these? Yes. I was sent Better Hate Than Never, which is the second book in the Wilmot Sisters series, I believe. If you like 10 Things I Hate About You and want an adult version of this, this is the one. This was so good. I loved this to pieces. I adored it so much. I am a little late on this train. I feel like I need to make an apology video for not recognizing the Bergman Brothers game. I was truly not familiar with it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But obviously the next 2 books in this subcategory are the first 2 books in the Bergman Brothers series. I was sent this one, but obviously I read this one first. I read this almost cover to cover on a drive down to LA. That's how hooked I was, and then immediately picked this up. I'm sorry I was not familiar with how truly phenomenal this series is. But basically, Bergman Brothers series. Each book follows a different Bergman sibling. The family is chaotic and amazing. I'll be talking more about this series in my January wrap-up. Romance, amazing. Disability representation. There's equal parts, like, emotional, but also so cute and sweet, and I just need everyone to read this series because it's so good. I read almost every single book in, like, almost one sitting. If there's one takeaway from this video, it's that you need to read this series. And we're back with another romance. This is the third book in a series, a very popular series on Bookstagram that I just adored. And I think this one's my favorite out of the series. Definitely my favorite love interest out of the series, and that is Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison. Oh, this was so cute. So this is Caleb and Layla's story. Layla is the one who runs the bakery in Lovelight Farms. She owns the bakery. She makes all the baked goods. Caleb is the police officer turned Spanish teacher. But basically, this is another like practice dating situation. I loved it. And I have an advanced copy of Business Casual just coming out this year, and I'm very excited to read it. Another romance. This one I read an advanced copy of. This is the third book in a series of interconnected standalones. That is Last Call at the Local by Sarah Grender Ruiz. And there's something about Sarah Grender Ruiz's books that never fail to make me cry. This one, I think, is my favorite. Possibly tied with book 2, which is Luck and Last Resorts, but this one follows the brother of the main character from the second book. His name is Jack, and it's set in Ireland. Jack, he owns the pub, the local. He wants to make the pub his own, but he struggles with making those changes. In walks Rain, who is an American traveling musician who recently got all of her instruments and all of her gear stolen. Ouch. Anyway, she wanders into the pub. She's having a drink, and, you know, she meets Jack. She doesn't know he's the owner of the pub. He asks her, you know, what would you change about this pub? What would you fix? She just goes in, she digs deep. Here are all the things wrong with your pub that you need to fix. So he hires her to kind of like spice up the pub, bring it new life. And obviously they end up falling in love. Both characters have ADHD. Jack has OCD, and he deals with intrusive thoughts throughout the course of the book. Something I really enjoy about Sarah Grender Ruiz's books is that I think all of them really deal with like mental health aspects really well, and it's woven into the story really well, but there's still also a really good romance like to back it up. Next, this is another one I don't actually have a copy of. I want to get my hands on a copy because I adore this author. She is the greatest. I think she deserves all the good things in the world. And that book is Dukes and Deeks by Tori Jean. I loved this book. Finding Gene Kelly is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. That's her debut. Oh, it's so good. And Dukes and Deeks is her most recent release, which is available on Kindle Unlimited. It is a friends to lovers dual POV. And there is a Jane Austen Regency fair, as well as the love interest. He is a professional hockey player. So there's a little something in it for everyone. It's just adorable, and I loved it. And I think everyone should read her books because they're just like a nice hug that you need at the end of a really long, hard day. And the love interests are always absolutely to die for. You know me, I'm a friends to lovers truther. And the friends to lovers in this one hits so hard, and it's so cute. And literally the last line of the epilogue had me sobbing, and I texted Tori, and I was just like, why did you do that to me? Anyway, it's absolutely recommend all of her books. They're so good. Speaking of crying while reading a book, this is a fantasy. Is this the only other fantasy on this list? Oh my god, I did not read a lot of fantasy last year. I was edging this book for so long because I knew it would be good and I knew it would hit. And I cried my eyes out, like uncontrollable tears. And that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I mean, if you know, you know. I have such a hard time describing fantasy because I need to do it justice. If you know R.F. Kuang, you know it's gonna be good. So it's kind of set in an alternate London in the 1800s, but it's like just so powerful, the exploration of it, and like the main character Robin, like the journey that he goes on, and the friends and like the friends he makes, and like his feelings of like being torn in like two different directions, and just it was so complex and it was so good, and it was so well done. And what's her name? I don't remember her name, but if you know, you know. And this goes out to that character. If you've read the book, you know who I'm talking about. And I knew she would, but I'm still mad that she did. But I highly recommend this book. I think it was absolutely phenomenal. I still need to finish the Poppy War series because I read the first Poppy War book and there was like one chapter in that book that utterly destroyed me. And I'm just like, I can't continue this series yet. But maybe this year is the year that I finish the Poppy War series. This one, I listened to an audio, and same with people who listen to a Kindle book. I got myself a trophy. And that's Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonam-Young? Ah, this one lived up to the hype. This one was so good. If you don't like accidental pregnancy books, read this. Read this book. It's so good. It's so good. I know there are people who are very anti-accidental pregnancy. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other. Accidental pregnancy in the third act can be what breaks a book, can be like annoying, can be a frustrating trope to include. But when the book is about the accidental pregnancy, I feel like that is the exception to that rule. Anyway, this book was so cute. So obviously it's about Win and Bo, who have a one-night stand on Halloween. And their meet cute is so adorable. She ends up getting pregnant. What ensues is them, you know, tackling the whole pregnancy and parenthood process together, falling in love, and just being so cute. But I listened to this on audio. The audiobook was absolutely delightful. It was so good that I listened to it in practically one day. I got my sister to listen to it, and she listened to it really quickly too, and she loved it. So I absolutely highly recommend this book. If you've been seeing it everywhere and being like, is it really that good? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Those were my 23-ish favorites, but I'm a little stinking liar. There's more than 23 on this list because I just can't leave it at 23. So here are my rapid fire honorable mentions for 2023. They're just gonna go up on the side as I list them out as quickly as humanly possible. So are you ready? Let's go. Destiny's Captive by Beverly Jenkins, Throwback by Maureen Gu, To Heaven to Heist by Sarah Desai, One Foot in the Grave by Janine Frost, Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura, Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score, Witch of Wild Things by Raquel Vasquez Gilliland. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, It's a Fabulous Life by Kelly Farmer, A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, Calamity by Constance Faye, Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood, Here With Me by Samantha Young, You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Colleen Barron. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced your name again. Harmony and Heartbreak by Claire Kahn, The Wedding Menu by Letitia Larini, Secret Service of Tea and Treason by India Holton, Isn't It Romantic by Lissa K. Adams, Amore Actually, which is an anthology by a bunch of different authors, and then Flawless, Heartless, and Powerless by Elsie Silver.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Those are my favorite books of 2023. Did you like those books? Let me know if you did. Did you hate those books? Please don't let me know. Please don't. You're allowed to not like them, but just please don't tell me how much you hated them. Comment down below what your favorite books of 2023 were. And y'all, I have officially made more booktube videos than my last attempt on this channel. So please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.